Hey guys, Chris here with the Good Old Gamer, and today I'm joined by Paul from Not an Apple Fan, and I am a fan of Not an Apple Fan. And Paul's been watching our channel here for a good little bit, and I actually noticed a lot of the qualities that I exude in his channel, so I wanted to bring him on here so we could have a little chat. So this is going to be kind of free form, and we're just going to have a discussion here today about YouTube and video cards and the whole landscape out there. So, Paul, welcome to the channel, buddy.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure. I've been watching your channel for a while, as you say. Really started watching it around the Vega times, when we were all waiting for Vega.
Man, were we waiting?
Yeah, there's nothing worse than waiting and then getting what you got, I suppose. There really is there. That's the problem. You don't mind waiting if you're going to get a good reward at the end.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something that we were just talking about, and it sounded like we were getting into an interesting conversation, so we just hit record. So this is going to be very free form, and there's not going to be a lot of structure here. But you were saying something about, like, I guess I was saying sometimes, like, I trigger the fandom out there, and then that led into the discussion about Vega.
Yeah, well, what you're saying is sometimes you trigger people, and I was saying I don't think you trigger people. I think you say things relevantly, but what happens is people get triggered by the things that you say because you tell the truth, and sometimes when you tell the truth, people don't like to hear the truth, and unfortunately, that causes people to get triggered. You know, but I was talking about the time when I was watching you waiting for Vega, and we were all waiting for it, and then it just turned out to be a flop, and you told the truth about it being a flop, and I think you triggered a lot of people then. It seemed like you lost a bit of interest or a bit of motivation for AMD products at the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a little demoralizing. I think the big thing was, and the way that I explained it was, you know, Ryzen came out and did exactly what it was supposed to do. It was everything that they said it was. Polaris came out, did everything that it was supposed to do. It did what it was marketed to do. And then Vega, you know, we kept seeing all those slides. It's like, twice the performance doing this, twice the performance. So the theory was that it was going to be twice as fast, you know, and if you're twice as fast, it would have been at the level of the 1080 Ti. So unfortunately, I was kind of just taking them at their word. And then once they stopped talking about stuff, once the 1080 Ti came out, I started realizing, I'm like, I don't think it's as good as they were saying. And then we got what we got.
For me, it was the blind taste test. Remember they did the blind taste test?
Yep.
Where they started showing people, like, this is smoother. Can you tell the difference between which one's smoother? I knew immediately that it was going to be a flop, that it wasn't going to be what they promised us, you know? It was the writing was on the wall with that. Like, that's how AMD spin things when they've missed the mark. It's like, we're smoother, or you can't tell the difference.
We're good enough. We're good enough, guys. And I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, realistically, for most people, they probably wouldn't notice. So, I mean, I guess in a way, it is smart marketing. But tech enthusiasts want graphs, and they want the cards to perform well on the graphs, because if it does good there, it's going to do well in real life. That's the way it works. Overall, Radeon 7, I didn't get hyped up for it this time, and I didn't hype this one. I kind of figured where it was going to be, and so did you. You kind of said the same thing.
Yeah. Well, what I thought was gigahertz. I thought it would hit 2 gigahertz, genuinely, and that's why I'm even more disappointed than I am now, because I thought of 2 gigahertz, like stock 2 gigahertz, it would come in somewhere just above a 2080, you know, not beating a 2080 Ti.
Right.
But I said it would be too expensive, because I think that in order to beat NVIDIA, you have to be faster and at the same price, or you have to be about the same performance but cheaper, and it's neither of those things.
Right. You need to provide some sort of extra value.
Yeah. Well, if you look at, I like to compare things to the smartphone market. If you look at when Samsung released the Galaxy S1, the first original Galaxy S phone, it was the same thing that the iPhone offered, but it was like significantly cheaper, you know? So that was how they got their market share, and that's why they're the leading smartphone manufacturer in the world, you know?
Yeah, you gotta come out. Yeah, when you don't have that mind share or that market share, you have to deliver more value for the same price, essentially. Otherwise, why would people choose you over the known brand? It's like if you go to the store and you got the no-named, you know, cornflakes, and then you have like the Kellogg's, which is the big name brand version. If they're the exact same price, Why wouldn't you just get, you know, the known quantity?
Yeah, I think years ago Eddie Murphy did a movie, I can't remember what it's called, where he ran for governor or something like that, and he just had the same name as the previous governor. So that was their whole slogan, the name you know. That's the whole method behind it, is the name you know. You go with the name you know unless somebody offers you something completely compelling, you know?
True. Yeah. Like, for example, I'm a big Pepsi guy, right? So if you put a Pepsi in front of me and then you put like a no-name cola, and they're the same price, there's no way I'm going to choose that because I know what I'm getting with the Pepsi. I drink.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why would you pay for something that you don't know what you're going to get? You're not going to. People are risk averse. Isn't that what they say?
Yeah. You know, yeah. Actually, that's probably the best way to phrase it. Yeah. People are risk averse. Yeah.
Yeah. But why spend all that money on something that you don't know how it's going to perform when you know that NVIDIA have never let you down? I think. But I've been hearing a lot of things about memory compression. Have you heard this buzzword people have been saying to me in the comments, like, you know, NVIDIA's memory compression is garbage. It makes the image look poorer than on AMD, and I've never noticed that. Have you ever noticed that? Like, that's one thing that's been bandied about for me. Like,
well, I don't think it's the memory compression. Tech Yes City, I always forget that dude's name.
Yeah, me too.
but he did a really good video, basically combating this. And what it is by default, NVIDIA's color gamut is actually lower. You can change it in the NVIDIA control panel. It's literally like a 3-click fix. And then once you do that, it's perfectly the same. Because, yeah, I noticed my AMD cards would actually look a little bit better. Colors were more vibrant on my monitor here. And then I was like, why is this? And that's the reason why. You can fix it on NVIDIA, and then it doesn't make any difference. The texture compression, that's just an algorithm inside, you know, the GPU to go ahead and fit more stuff into the VRAM. That's really all that is.
Well, this is what these people say to me, you know, and I didn't understand it. And I was like, well, I'm going to go get myself I have like a couple of GTX like 1070s and 780s and odds and bits and pieces around the shed. So I just took a few of them out and I plugged them in. I have a second computer and I plugged them into the same monitor, and I just flipped between sources and I couldn't see a difference at all, to be honest. So it's kind of, I thought there might have been a video there. There was no video there. That's all I can say. I was thinking about doing the same thing, and then I did a little search, and then, like I said, Tech Yes City over there, they just nailed it right on the head. I'm like, there's no reason for me to even touch this. Yeah, well, I heard something about psychology, way humans deal when they're faced with like something that conflicts with their belief. You know, like an AMD fan, for instance. So an AMD fan loves AMD products, and then you say, well, actually, this product is faster. And what you do is you actually do the same thing in your mind as you do in real life, which is fight or flight. So you either fight the thing or you just run away from it. You're never going to be open to actually having your mind changed. You know, if that's a belief, a true core belief that you have, it's just the way humans work. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, we are odd creatures. And I can definitely say that I've seen that, and I'm sure you have in your comment sections. But it's really definitely. The reason why I do this is because I've literally seen people change. Like, there was one guy a few weeks ago. I probably spent a good 3 hours just responding to comments. Like, we were going back and forth on one of my videos. And it took a little while because I guess I wasn't explaining it in a way that worked for him, but I eventually hit the right way of phrasing things. I kept saying the same thing over and over again, but I was just changing the way I was phrasing it. And then the light bulb clicked. And he's like, oh, now I get what you're talking about. So I think some people are willing to go there, but it just needs to be reiterated and spoken about in different ways to where it makes sense to that person's individual way of thinking.
Yeah. But what happens is that certain people become fanatical about brand. They're the people that are really hard to get through to because it's a fundamental belief thing.
Yeah.
Their core belief structure, you know, almost like a religion, in fact. And very much like what people with Apple products, you know, their religion, Church of Apple, Church of NVIDIA, Church of AMD, and then they're really hard to argue with, and I get a lot of that in my comments, you know.
Yeah, those ones I kind of write off. There has to be a nugget of, you know, open-mindedness. There's got to be a little bit, but if you're completely closed and locked off, I mean, there's nothing I can do. I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and you're going to call me a shill or trash or whatever. That's fine. You're going to do that. But I'm going to keep saying what I'm going to say, and I'm just going to ignore your comment.
Exactly. Like I I had a problem with people just constantly saying that I'm saying negative things about an AMD for sake of saying negative things about AMD, and I wasn't calling Radeon 7 a bad card, because let's be honest, it's not that promising. It's not that good of a card compared to an RTX 2080, but it's still a decent product. The issue with Radeon 7 is that it doesn't hit a proper price point where people will buy it. So therefore, I want competition in the market, and I want AMD to do well, because that would drive NVIDIA prices down, and it would be good for everybody. But the issue is that it's not good enough to do that, and that was my argument. Whereas people just kept going back to, well, it's a good card, it's fast, it beats a 1080 Ti, which in fact it doesn't. But that's what people want to believe.
Well, I mean, it's close enough. It's close enough, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't overclock, which is a big problem at the moment. And I'm just worried that it's just another AMD card that's overclocked out of the factory.
Well, I'm waiting on your analysis on that, because Steve hasn't really done any overclocking yet on Hardware Unboxed, and I'm waiting for you to get your card. Well,
if you think about it, I have a Vega 64 sitting here, and if I just run it at stock out of the box, number one, the bias is set to standard, it's not set to OC. And if you just run that stock out of the box, it just hits 1400 megahertz and doesn't go. It jumps up to 1600 megahertz, and then within maybe a minute of the gameplay, it just drops down to 1400 megahertz and stays locked at 1400 megahertz. So that was are they just comparing it to a 1400 megahertz card? And if this card doesn't overclock, well then that's really bad, because now you can say, well, go buy a Vega 64 and overclock, and you're getting maybe 88% of the performance for
half the price.
Half the price, yeah, pretty much, which makes their own product look kind of stupid, very much like the 1080 Ti made the 2080 look stupid.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we all knew that the 1080 at $699 was ridiculous. I still find it funny that I got so much hell for calling that card out back then, and now everybody's freaking. Oh, I caught so much shit. I think I was the first person that really called out NVIDIA on that. I'm like, does nobody on the internet realize that this is a terrible price for this card? Apparently at the time nobody did, but that's why with RTX I'm a lot happier. It seems people woke up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, for the 1080 Ti, I thought it was a fantastic, but the problem is the price, and I always said that, it probably costs them as much to make as it did the 980 Ti, and the 980 Ti was like, what, $650, and now they've added another $100 on top of it, wasn't it? That's what they've done?
Yep.
Yeah, so they added another $100, and it cost them no more to make it. So for me, I was like, that's kind of nasty. And because if you look at the way they did Maxwell to Pascal, what they did is dramatically reduce the amount of shaders on each SKU, dramatically ramp up clock speed to make up the difference.
Oh yeah, the clock speeds was really what they were shooting for with Pascal. It was just super high clocks, low CUDA count, small die, and large profit margins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's make the money. That was their heyday. That's where the profits went. I think you've said this before. I think I've heard you say this. That's where they made their money. That's where they became like the big company there now.
Oh yeah, I mean they never hit $1 billion a quarter before Pascal. They weren't even close. They were so far from hitting $1 billion a quarter. Now they're hitting $2 billion a quarter. So I mean, yeah, that's really when it happened. Is they got the cheaper die that they were selling you for more money. And that's how they started making tons and tons of money. That and the fact that AMD did not compete at a certain price point. To me, I think the biggest mistake with Polaris was not putting out a $399 GPU right then. Something that's like 50% bigger than the RX 480. Sell it for $399, be a 1070 competitor. And I think the whole landscape that we have today would be completely different. But
yeah, I don't know whether you've seen Jim's video on it, but did you see that he got like kind of an insider said that there was definitely going to be a big Polaris, and it just never happened. It got sacked for Vega.
Yeah, I remember seeing that, and I think I face-palmed when I heard that. So they knew what they needed to do, they just didn't do it. That's basically what I got out of that.
Yeah, we have two. What they wanted to do was they wanted to have the very same thing that NVIDIA have, which is they wanted to have a gaming architecture and a compute architecture, and for some reason they ran out of money and they prioritized compute and bastardized that to become a gaming card as well, and that's what really cost them, I think, because that's where you miss out on the high margins. You know, if they'd have doubled Polaris, it probably would have been only 400 millimeters squared, and they would have been able to use GDDR5 or 5X if they'd got hands on 5X,
right?
And then they would have been able to make an extremely gamer-focused gaming card. And it might not have been as fast as Vega 64, but it would have been cheaper, and they would have made a profit margin on it, and that would have been the main thing about it, you know?
Right, yeah, it would have made a lot more sense, because, yeah, if they doubled it across the board, let's say a 512 memory bus, and just doubled the... Even if it was, you know, the same 64 compute units, they lower it down a little bit. I think it would have competed well against a Vega 64, and as you said, it would have been a lot cheaper for them. But, you know, it's those masks that cost, you know, a few $1 million there, and they probably didn't have it because Ryzen really wasn't out yet.
Prioritize the compute, like go into after the server market, you know, the deep learning.
Well, that's part of the reason why NVIDIA is now hitting billions of dollars a quarter, is because that actually exploded too during that time frame. So yeah, they saw all that money and they're like, we want some of that. Except it's like, look, guys, you need to have your core group, and this is something that NVIDIA understands. You need to satiate your core group that's keeping your company afloat before anybody else. No matter how high a market that is, you still need that core group at all times. Otherwise, you're gonna get in trouble.
Well, I always compare it to what my dad used to say. You know, my dad, he was a publican. He ran a bar, and he used to say, you know, I used to say, why are all these people in here? Why do you look after them so good? You know, there's like maybe 8 or 9 people who are always in the bar,
right,
drinking their lives away. Kind of sad, but he was like, so they're the people who keep the lights on. They're the people who pay my wages. Everything else is our profit. You know what I mean? So that's why he looks after them, keep them there, keep them staying there. You know. And that's what AMD forgot, I think, as you say, with after Polaris.
Yeah, card's definitely not worth that. I mean, at the $349, and at least here in the US, I can see a pretty decent argument for the RTX 2060. I don't think I gave it as fair of a shake as I should have, because I didn't realize at the time it is the only RTX card that launched that actually delivered better performance per dollar than... compared to the previous generation. All of the rest of them were equal or worse.
yeah. Well, the 2070 is my big problem. My whole problem with the 2070, because for me, that's the 60 card. That is the actual 60 card. Because you look at the die, it's TU106, so it's a 60 card, yeah? And then it's got no SLI, and the only cards that up until now have had no SLI support have been 60 cards. So for me, it just looked like a bang of a 60 card and a price grab as well. That was the one that really upset me. And it was the one that, and I did a huge video giving out about RTX cards. But I was saying the RTX 2080 Ti, that's off in another stratosphere. Let people with more money than sense buy that. I don't care about that. The 2080 is an insult. The 2070 is an absolute complete utter joke.
Yeah, the 2080 and the 2070, realistically, if you're going to buy an RTX card, either look at the 2060 or the 2080 Ti, because the two in the middle, there's just no reason. If you wanted that level of performance, you would have already bought it last generation. That's my argument. It's like, you could have gotten the same performance for the same price, you know, last year. Why didn't you do it? Because it wasn't good enough. Why is it good enough now?
Yeah, well, my big problem is I get a lot of comments nowadays buying Xboxes.
Well, I mean, that's an option. It's definitely an option.
Yeah, but it's kind of sad though. It hurts. Like I've been an enthusiast for years. I'm just going out to buy an Xbox because I can't be dealing with the prices anymore, and it kind of gives me fear for the sector that I love is going to implode on itself because so many people are going to buy consoles. Well,
this kind of ties into another thing that I put on our little topic list is, you know, what about like the whole APU thing? Do you think that's really going to be a thing? Well, consoles are obviously the most gaming optimized APUs that there are. But I mean, if we take the specs that we're presuming the next gen consoles are going to be, so we're looking at probably, you know, an 8-core Ryzen. Let's just say like something equivalent to like a Ryzen 1700, and paired up with like something like a Vega 56 or a Vega 64. I don't know, man. I mean, that's pretty compelling if they sell it for a cheap enough price, $500 for the whole package, and then you're done, and all your games are optimized better than they're optimized on PC. I mean, it's a real compelling argument, and as you get older, especially, you know, I'm in my mid-30s now, I actually don't know how old you are, but you got a kid, so you're old
33,
enough.
33.
All right, so we're
33.
almost the same age.
Yeah.
As you get older, you kind of want to just kick back after work on the couch more than you do on like a computer. So, the whole couch gaming thing, I think, is another factor. So you're getting cheaper prices, better optimization, and you get to sit in your nice, comfy recliner. I think for a lot of people, that's a very compelling argument.
Yeah, it is. But also, I think the whole idea of an APU being as fast or faster than a dedicated GPU in the long term doesn't make sense to me. Like you've got dedicated cooling on a GPU, you've got more space to play with it. Your die gets bigger. You've got there's this talk of putting two dies together to work together as one die, very much like the way Ryzen does with two CCXs. So there's a lot of room. I think there's a time and a place for APUs, but I don't think they're going to overtake GPUs. But also, it's a good place to sit on the couch and play games. I can't argue with that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, consoles, I understand that market, and my big thing is, so a lot of the times we say that the games are more optimized because there's such weak hardware, but a lot, if you go check out Digital Foundry, a lot of these games don't maintain frame rates very well. And even if you have a VRR, TV, most of those don't have low frame rate compensation. So all these 30 frame per second games that aren't hitting their target, you're going to get stutters and slowdown. And for me, that's just not an enjoyable experience. And that's the reason why I would prefer to play on PC. But eventually, like next gen, if they all get to that 60 FPS mark, I don't know, that's going to become even more compelling. As for on the PC side, APUs aren't going to take over, in my opinion, for a long time. Biggest problem is going to be memory bandwidth. Memory is just not fast enough. Yeah,
exactly. That's the big one. But also, you can think of a future where they put die. So you could see them doing something like that. Like I think they've done it with Intel, didn't they? Where they made one SoC with like a kind of a Vega graphics.
Yeah, it had the one stack 4 GB of HBM on it. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see them do something like that to alleviate a bit of that bottleneck. But still, you're not going to have the terabyte of bandwidth that we have today. That's 4 stacks, So.
Right. The other thing is, HBM's so expensive. APUs are meant to be a cheap budget solution. So
yeah, exactly.
It's kind of counterproductive putting HBM on something like that.
Yeah. I can't see it over. Like I can't see it. With consoles, I can see consoles taking over again. I can see consoles having a second lease of life. Like there's streaming services that Xbox are going to be doing, where they're going to just sell you a little $50 or $100 box, and you're just going to stream off their cloud service. You can use keyboard and mouse now with Xbox, which is a big thing, I think, to get a lot of that extra. People, I think eventually they're just going to turn an Xbox into a PC, essentially, that you can run in your living room with kind of a skin over it or something.
I think that's eventually going to be the game plan. Or, eventually they want to go to the whole streaming thing, which I think it's cool. It'd be really great, like let's say you're going on like, you got to go drive to your in-laws. Like mine live like 2 hours away. I'm busy playing, I don't know, Halo, for example. I could jump on my phone and I could play Halo, continue my game while we're going to my in-laws. I think that's really cool in theory, but I still think that we're many years away from that particularly, working well enough that it matters.
Well, like, have you seen these like shadow boxes or what? I don't know what they're called. Where you register for an account, get a small box you put on your desk, and you hook it into your monitor, and you rent an dedicated NVIDIA GPU and like 8 cores of a Xeon and like 16 gigabytes of RAM, and it's your PC, and you get a gigabit connection to that PC.
Yeah, I've actually seen that, and I'm like, you know what? That's actually pretty cool if it's cheap enough.
Yeah.
And if they upgrade enough, like let's say they upgrade every time a new GPU releases and your price stays the same, I can see a lot of people being like, screw it. Yeah, I'll just use a thin client, just some old, $50 computer that you buy off of eBay. Just log into this thing and let them deal with it.
Yeah, well, like I think that's what's going to happen with consoles eventually. That's what your console is going to be,
I think that's the game plan. The problem is just internet's just not fast enough, and
no.
For gaming, I don't know. We have people with 240 hertz monitors bitching that, my game running at 500 frames per second is not fast enough.
Yeah.
You're never, ever going to get that running off of hardware somewhere else.
No, never. But what's your internet speeds like there in the US?
I'd say on average, they've come up pretty good. I'd say the average person probably has 100 megabit down and at least 10 megabit up. I'd say that's probably average. You have people that have gigabit and all that, but I'd say average is probably 100.
Yeah, here in Ireland, it's like if you live in a city, it's like 300. But if you live outside the cities, you'd be lucky to get 10. And Ireland is like a country about the size of the state of New York.
Yeah.
It's probably smaller. And yeah, and a much less population. And we can't give our country proper internet. So as you say, I think that's the issue, you know?
Yeah, and it's never going to be fast enough because by the time they're like, yeah, we can do this and we can stream at 1080p, it's going to be like, well, where's 4K? By the time they get 4K working, it's like, where's 8K? You know, and they're never going to be able to catch up. Internet speeds, I just don't think will ever really get there to really satiate the hardcore. And I don't think that's what they're going to be going for. I think it's going to be the more casual people. And I think they're going to be very happy with it, honestly. Good one would be, we could talk about that Apex Legends. I actually think that's pretty interesting how this game came out of nowhere and it's a serious Fortnite competitor. A game that launched on Monday. Yeah.
I've heard of it, but I haven't given it any time because it launched on Monday.
Yeah, it's less than a week old. The game was announced and launched on the same day, that never happens.
Based on the Titanfall engine, I heard, yeah? Yeah,
it's basically... Did you play Titanfall 2?
I played Titanfall 2 for like 10 minutes.
Okay, well, at the very least, you have that experience to base it off of. It's the same game engine. It's basically just re-skinned and redone for a battle royale, mixed with a little bit of Overwatch. Like, there's characters, and they do have abilities and stuff, but it's not like a major differentiating factor. Building. But... my big thing is this game came out of nowhere. Nobody knew about it, no hype, no nothing. Just came out, here it is, and now it's like the most played game, period, right now.
And it came out Monday.
It's a free game, and it's multiplayer only, Battle Royale. And this game is going to be huge. It's going to be the biggest game of the year. This is going to dwarf Anthem. Like, EA probably had no idea that this game was, or maybe they did. They probably hoped. But yeah, this is going to be the biggest game of the year because it runs good. It's better than the Unreal 4 engine that games like PUBG have. It looks and plays similarly to Blackout, but it costs you nothing. It's a free game.
Well, that's the most important thing. Like I love games that are free, but also you have to understand that they have to make some money. So I don't mind microtransactions that are purely aesthetic or something like that, you know, which is a lot how PUBG I think makes its money. PUBG makes more money on the paid bit, but I got PUBG for like $12 or something like that, so I didn't really mind. But I really think that if you're gonna make a free game, you need to make it free and make it not pay to win, and then you've got a winning formula, I think, you know.
Yeah, I just think that this is literally the blueprint for multiplayer-only games going forward. Free to play is the only way that these games are going to succeed because games like Blackout or PUBG, where they charge money for those games, why would you pay that? You have a competing product now that's of high quality. Like I said, the game engine is very well optimized. The graphics look good. It runs well on all the platforms, and it doesn't cost you a penny. And if you like the game, you'll keep playing it. And then, you'll probably spend a couple bucks here and there on it to do your thing because you like the game. Basically, what it is you get the experience first, and then you pay for it after you determine that it's worth the money. And I think that that's the new business model that's going to be taking over. And I think that's a good thing for gamers. Yeah,
well, you see, the issue is you can't really... like for me, my big games that I really loved over the years were games that had really good story-driven single player and then had a very good multiplayer afterwards, if you know what I mean. Like StarCraft, for instance, was my big game for years. And it had a three chapter storyline and then a really good back end of very competitive multiplayer, you know, 1v1 kind of games. And I love those games. But they seem to be falling out of favor. Single player story seems to be falling out of favor, and you need a budget for that. So this is the way, as you say, to make a multiplayer game: is do it free, to do it well, use a very well-established engine that's not going to be a clusterfuck. For instance, PUBG at launch. I don't know whether it's engines, as you say, old engines, and you know them being kind of better with the you know, I think it's something to do with the CPU in the AMD driver compared to the CPU in the video driver on DirectX 11. There's definitely something there to be said for older games running better on. It's definitely something to do with CPU, I think, and the way CPU is handled on DirectX 11 titles.
Well, that was
because it stops feeding it for a second.
I was gonna say that's how it was with you know, older AMD drivers, pretty much post Relive. I haven't really noticed that much of an issue, but yeah, back in the day, it was a real problem.
Yeah. Well, what I've noticed is that AMD drivers are spectacular, like really good. I was surprised because I went from an NVIDIA card to I was delighted with NVIDIA drivers, and then I got these Relive drivers, and they're just so pretty and so well organized, and they just work well. Yeah,
and everything actually works. It's like, there we go. Now we're talking. Plus, you have all the features. Like you have the, I keep wanting to say Shadowplay, but you got Relive. And you know, it does the same thing. The one thing that I have noticed between AMD and NVIDIA does play better with OpenGL. AMD does not seem to like OpenGL. Like, Relive will not work in OpenGL for me.
I can't understand why that is, and I can't seem to pinpoint the reason why it happens either. Do you have any information on why that happens?
No, I actually don't. It's just one of those things that I've started noticing, and I'm like, I gotta look a little bit deeper into it. It really came to my attention when I started getting into emulation, when I was on my little break, and a lot of those use OpenGL, and yeah, NVIDIA definitely has the advantage on those emulators, but most of those are going to be switching to Vulkan, so once that happens, I don't think it'll matter anymore. But
no, that's what's happening with a lot of games now, though, especially on Linux, isn't it? There's a project where they're trying to recode every game to run on Vulkan.
Yeah, well, Steam, I was watching a video yesterday. They got the Proton thing. They have, Wine with some sort of Vulkan wrapper around it. Basically, it'll reprogram DirectX into Vulkan using several different programs. So it does have a little bit of overhead. But I think that's going to be really awesome. That's something I do want to look into, is moving over to Linux. If we can get most, if not all, of our DirectX games running in Linux, even with that extra overhead, let's say it's 20% slower or 20% hit on your performance, to get rid of Windows, I'd actually be okay with that, personally.
Yeah. Same. I hear Windows is going to subscription, and I don't know how much truth there is behind that, but that's the day I'm finished with Windows.
Oh yeah, the second that happens, that's what I heard, and same as you, man. Once I heard that, I'm like, nope, we're done. Our relationship is over once you do that.
Yeah, it's like when they tried to charge Ireland, and I was like, the minute we start getting charged for water, I'm leaving this fucking country. Because we have the highest rainfall, like most countries in the world. Right. And they try to charge us for water. No, it falls from the sky for free. Thank you very much.
Right. Yeah. Once companies start going a little ridiculous, that's when it's time to jump. But hey, I want to move on to I really want to touch on this subject here. Is how'd you get into YouTube? Like what drove you to start your channel?
Well, I was doing a kind of a YouTube channel with my cousin. He's like my brother. We grew up together, and what happened was my wife got pregnant, and I couldn't give it as much time. And it was really kind of editing focused, really kind of family friendly, no swearing, no giving your honest opinion on things. Even though like he's my brother and I love him, and I just felt like I was letting him down because I couldn't give as much time to it. Because everything needed to be edited, and we were trying to up the quality of the content as well all the time.
Right.
And so what happened was I left around December last year, and I decided, right, I'll give it a go myself, just doing what I actually like to talk about, which is just computer hardware. And I kind of build PCs as a hobby and sell them. Sometimes I make a little bit of profit, sometimes I don't, but it's just kind of more of a hobby than anything else. You know, I get secondhand hardware, I get to test a lot of stuff, and it justifies paying for stuff, you know, and then I can move it on. And that was the longest way I had my own desktop, was like I'd build a desktop, game on it for a while it was up for sale, and then buy another one, you know, that kind of way.
Yeah, just kind of keep chugging through them.
Yeah, gradually upgrading my hardware. Like,
nice.
So I said I must do some videos on this stuff, and I just the January, I just said I'd sit down and do my first video, and I had a camera and I had a mic and I had a decent PC, and I just said I'll sit down. I did like a shitty video of me talking about my computer setup, and I just did a video every day from then on, pretty much every day since from then on, and I just enjoy it. And then I get really upset about things, and my coping mechanism about getting upset about, like, you know, terrible product launches or, you know, whatever, and people tend to say I'm a bit negative because I give out a lot, but that's my therapy. I come in and I give out to the camera.
So your YouTube community are part of your therapeutic process then?
Yeah, that's it. They help me. If I didn't have them, I'd be shouting in my garden.
You stupid gnome! It costs too much money! God damn it!
New video! So, I was thinking about Zen. Speaking about my PC, I was thinking about Zen 2, and what do you think the Threadripper variant of that is going to be? Do you think it's going to have 64 cores?
No. I think they're going to do it smart. Excuse me. Epic will be up to 64. Threadripper will stay at 32, and the consumer market will go up to 16. You have a nice segmentation. Yeah. You know where each one kind of ends, and you need to step up at that point. I think that makes the most sense for them.
So you think they'll do like 16 as the base for, well, like they did with Ryzen?
I think that they will, as kind of like a more entry-level part, you know, something cheaper to get in there. But, you know, going up to Threadripper, you get the extra PCIe lanes, which if you need them, you know, that's still a really good deal. So I think that, they'll probably do that, because I'm sure that there's probably going to be a 32-core Epic as well, even though that they have a Threadripper, because, you know, you get the extra memory bandwidth. There are extra features that you get, so...
that's the main reason I went for Threadripper over Ryzen, was I wanted the platform. I wanted the big beefy motherboard with all the features and the extra expansion for RAM and the extra PCI slots, because I was originally planning on doing 2 Vega cards in Crossfire, and didn't work out. But, like, you know, I was originally planning on that just because I wanted the most powerful AMD system you could build at the time. And I decided to try and do that, and obviously it didn't work out with the Crossfire. But yeah, the board is just beautiful.
Oh yeah, I mean it's awesome, especially if you're going to be doing expandability. Like, I was thinking I'll probably have to go with a Threadripper eventually, if the channel gets to that point where I need multiple capture devices, like 4K captures. Yeah, because those are all 4 times PCI, so you need real PCIe slots for those, and you need as much bandwidth as you can get, and SSDs out the yin-yang. And I'm like, if I'm doing that, I'm going Threadripper, because price to performance, you can't beat it. And with the new Zen 2 and the chiplet architecture and everything, I think it's going to be very good at gaming as well. Obviously, it's not going to be any better than the mainstream, but it's not going to have like those issues I think that we saw initially with some of the other Threadrippers.
Well, what I really like about Threadripper, the reason why I brought up Threadripper is because I have my own Threadripper. What I really like about Threadripper is that unlike on Intel, because they're kind of a generation behind with their HEDT, you get all your 16 cores running at the same clock speed as you can on the Ryzen platform as well, and it always seems to be that way. Like, they cherry pick the silicon that goes in Threadripper so that all of your cores kind of hit the same frequency as the mainstream. Do you think that's going to be the case with the new Threadripper stuff, that it's going to hit like whatever we're talking about, 4.6, 4.7, maybe 5 gigahertz, holy grail?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the things that Jim's been talking about, is how AMD cherry picks their stuff. And I mean, it makes sense. Your best stuff goes to the server, second best stuff goes to your professional-ish or, you know, HEDT, and then the worst stuff goes to the consumer. And that's just the way that it goes. And mobile is usually somewhere in between the, you know, consumer market and the professional market, because it's still better than the consumer stuff. And that's basically what the Radeon 7 is. It's the worst of the MI50s. And
exactly.
And it's going to be the same thing with the Ryzen CPUs once they come out, the Zen 2s. But I think they're going to sell the better chips on the really high-end one. I think they're going to have a really awesome 16-core that kicks the teeth in, and it'll probably be Threadripper quality die just to do that. But they will charge a premium for that.
No, it's going to be like 600 quid. Easy.
Probably.
I'd say.
Yeah, somewhere 500-600 at least.
Yeah, well, it's kind of, when you think about it, like They're offering this probably the same clock speed as the 9900K. They're offering double the cores, and they're offering maybe 10% IPC on top of their previous generation of Ryzen. So you're talking about something with 10 to 15% better IPC at 5 gigahertz, and it's got double the cores. Of course, they're going to charge a little bit more than what the 9900K goes for.
I actually think that they're going to only launch it at the 12. I think they're going to hold back the 16 core until Ice Lake hits. And then
until the 10 core. Is it the 10 core that you're talking about? I don't I never really keep abreast of the Intel.
I'm not really sure what they're going to be doing, but it is a new architecture. So I think that AMD does need to have something in reserves just in case if they come out of the gate with something that is pretty compelling. So yeah. I believe that they'll probably start with the 12 cores because that's more than enough to wipe the floor with the 9900K anyway.
Yeah.
Probably get away with selling those at about $500 and then see what happens towards the end of the year. And then if they need to drop the 16 core, they'll probably do it at that point.
Yeah, well, like I was doing an IPC test to see, and I took all of my memory out just to see, you know, that leaked 12 core.
Yeah.
Well, my CPU compared, and it was looking like an 8 to 10% difference. So that's huge if you consider 12 cores. 12 cores, 24 threads on a like 500 quid against an 8 core 16 threaded CPU. It's amazing.
It'll be
really
50+% faster. I mean,
yeah.
And there's no debating that because they won't have single thread performance anymore. They won't have clock speed performance advantage anymore. It's literally an apples to apples comparison at that point, and then it just comes down to money.
Like, yeah, and like you did a video on Ryzen, on the Ryzen CES thing. And I seen that, and like for me, I think that wasn't. I don't think that 8-core part was running as fast as the Intel part. I think it was running slower, clock speed slower.
Oh, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it probably was. Yeah, that one I had to kind of put in a pinned comment. Unfortunately. The numbers that Tech Power Up had that I used were wrong. I mean, it did win by like a small margin or whatever, but it was definitely running slower. It was probably 4.4, somewhere in that range, I would figure.
Yeah, because the Intel part was probably running that more like 4.
Yeah, I would say that it was probably 10%, at least 10% slower than whatever Intel was running.
Yeah, but it got a slight win, and it did it with better power efficiency. And that's what they were trying to show. They weren't trying to win power efficiency, great power efficiency lead. That's what they were trying to show. And so you have to be very careful with AMD's demonstrations. They're always trying to show you something. And people trying to get mixed up. Wait, it's only slightly better and it's only 8 cores. You know, that's what people grabbed onto. But what they were trying to show you was power efficiency.
Right.
And they succeeded.
Yeah, which, I mean, to me, that wasn't, like, super amazing, because I'm like, it's on 7 freaking nanometer. It better have better power efficiency. But, yes, that's what they wanted to show. We could at least match performance, and it's more efficient. So, at the very least, if, let's say they said screw efficiency, and they matched it, equal efficiency, it should be faster. And that's an equation that a lot of people should have been able to figure out on their own, looking at that data.
Exactly. Like, and if they're beating it at 8-core to 8-core at a slower clock speed, then imagine if they do get the clock speeds that we're all hoping for with a pinch of salt, because let's be honest, they could still flop on the clock speeds and it could still be a very compelling product. I'm hoping for 4.6 to 4.7 gigahertz, not getting my expectations any higher than that.
I think that's reasonable. That's like a 10% bump. We saw 10% from Zen to Zen Plus. So I think that's a very acceptable or realistic thing to be looking at,
especially when you're thinking about 10% IPC as well. Yeah,
that's really what's gonna kick some ass, because once you throw that on top, the clock speeds from Intel no longer are apples to apples. They're actually behind on IPC. So
exactly, yeah, that's the most important thing. It's like your multipliers, your base multiplier, how fast you are at a specific baseline, and then you can just clock speed on top of that, and then you can do so with Zen Plus or with Zen 2 Plus, whatever. That's when you can go for your arms in the air clock speed.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I think Zen 3 is supposed to be. It's basically just Zen 2's optimizations, but then they're shooting for clock speeds. So yeah, I'm not expecting huge clock speeds this time around, but yeah. So 4.5 to 4.7, and it'll probably perform identically. All right, so yeah, that'll pretty much do it for us here today. I want to thank you, Paul, once again for joining me here. And it's kind of nice just doing these discussion videos. You know, when you're talking at yourself and then you have the comment section, it's like a different relationship. I actually kind of miss doing this.
Yeah, well, you used to have a partner in crime a while back, Chris.
Yeah, I started the channel with Joe, and this is essentially what the channel was just this. And you know, that was a lot of fun there, but Joe wanted to get into the streaming, so it became a little incompatible, unfortunately.
How's he doing?
Looks like he's hung up his towel on that one, unfortunately. Streaming's tough. I couldn't get into streaming. No thank you on that one. But
you have to be able to talk for hours and hours and hours. Yeah,
I can't do that every day. Sometimes I'm like, man, just making it to like a 4-minute video. I'm like, I gotta add at least another minute or two here. Nobody wants to see a 2 or 3 minute video.
No, you gotta hit the 10-minute mark, man. That's what I do.
I don't care about the 10-minute mark. I just don't like putting something out that's like literally like 3 or 4 minutes long. I'm like, nah, I gotta come up with something else, and then I'll go find more information about whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, you do a better job at your videos than I do. I shouted at camera for 15, 20 minutes.
Hey, it's entertaining. I enjoy watching it, and I've done it before too. So, you know.
Yeah. If anybody wants to see a ginger 20 minutes, not an Apple fan. It's my channel.
Links, of course, will be in the description below. Go check out his channel. He's a great guy. He's a little bit... Think of me with less of a filter, and then there you go. That's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah. Imagine a pirate giving tech advice. That's the best way I can describe my videos.
That's right. And he's telling you how to plunder all the gold out there. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Well,
all right, so...
Alrighty, thank you, Paul. And for the rest of you guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Please share with friends. Please check out Paul's channel, Not an Apple Fan. Subscribe to his channel. That would be greatly appreciated. He's got good stuff over there. And let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Really like to hear what your thoughts on this. And that's all I have for today. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.